what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video. We're 8 months into the year, and I wanted to take a look at my top 10 PC games of 2018 so far. Now, I am just one man. I haven't played absolutely every single PC game that's been released this year, one of the notable exclusions being Pillars of Eternity 2. And I haven't played enough of Monster Hunter World on PC to come to a definitive conclusion, so you'll see a couple of notable absences. More likely than not, it's just because I haven't played those games, but still wanted to go through 10 of my favorite games of 2018 so far. Not gonna put these in any order, so let's just get right into it, and I want to start the list off with Vampyr, however you want to call it. This is a game that really surprised me. It's a vampire-themed RPG done by the guys over at Don't Nod Entertainment. Now, those guys also did Life is Strange, so you can tell from a storytelling standpoint, this is a very strong game. Now, I do have to say some of the gameplay elements leave a little bit to be desired. However, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Vampyr. I thought it had some great voice acting, the visuals were solid, the atmosphere was great, so all of that put together definitely does outweigh the lackluster gameplay. Definitely a game that I would recommend. Maybe hold off on dropping full price for it, but when it's on sale for say $20 to $25, definitely get it then. Next up, we have a game that stirred up a little bit of controversy, not because of the game itself, but let's just talk about Dead Cells. Now, if you guys don't know, there was that huge debacle that happened over at IGN, and that's what actually opened me up to play this game more. I had heard about the game, I had played a little bit of it prior to that, but then after all that went down, I was like, man, let me just sit down and give Dead Cells a shot. And at first, I didn't get what all the fuss was about. I appreciated the fantastic art style, the gameplay seemed solid, but it really didn't grab me until I died a couple times, and then I got some of the other weapons, and then the gameplay really opens up, and it just gets you more and more into the experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Dead Cells, a game that I'm still not completely done with, but if you're a fan of roguelike games, if you're a fan of Metroidvania style games, this is one to definitely check out. It also has some Souls-like elements. Basically, you kill, you die, you learn, and you repeat, and you do that over and over again, but the game always feels fresh, and that's why people are dropping, 50, 60, 70 hours into this game without even blinking an eye. Next up, we have a game that did disappoint some people, but I was a big fan of it, and that was Frostpunk. Frostpunk was done by 11-Bit Studios, the guys that also did This War of Mine, and I think for the content that's in Frostpunk, I think everybody really enjoyed it, myself included. The main issue people had with it is that there isn't a ton of content here. You can complete the game in around 12 to 15 hours, and to some people that is not a long enough experience, especially because it does have a more linear focus, and as a city survival game, that might be a little bit disappointing, but I definitely appreciated it. I don't need to spend 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, even north of 100 hours on every game. I like my smaller experiences. I like games where I can get in and get out because I'm trying to play a lot of games. So maybe for somebody like me, I appreciated the shorter length of Frostpunk. I didn't mind the fact that it didn't have all this content. And the content, again, that was there, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The story was great, and if you're familiar with This War of Mine, if you like the dark, grim vibe that game set, you'll definitely like the same type of vibe that Frostpunk gives you. Right now, I believe the game is discounted. I think it's 20% off, still a little over $20. I think it's well worth it, but if you are put off by the lack of content, maybe wait for a deeper discount. Next up, we have a game that was released very early on in this year. It's the platformer known as Celeste. Celeste was a game that came out of nowhere. It was a game that wasn't even really on my radar, and then the reviews for this game came out. I believe IGN gave this game a perfect 10 out of 10, and at that point I was like, whoa, I gotta check this game out, and it is a fantastic old school platformer. If you're a fan of Super Nintendo games, if you're a fan of more challenging platformers like a Super Meat Boy, this is gonna be right up your alley. It's got a pretty good story in there as well. It's vibrantly created, and I love the art style. I know it's not up everybody's alley, but just like Dead Cells, I cannot get enough of that pixel look, so definitely give Celeste a look. Still a little bit on the pricier side, but if you're into platformers, it's absolutely worth it. Next up, we have Yakuza Zero. For the first time, a Yakuza game made its way over to the PC, and I would say that Sega definitely got it right with Yakuza Zero. The game runs really well, at least from my experience, and it's that Yakuza we knew and love if you played it on the PlayStation. Yes, it's a little bit zany, it's a little bit wacky at times, but at the same time, it's got a very mature story in there. The hand-to-hand combat is great, and best of all, Sega got the pricing right with this game. It was released at just $20 on PC, and that was the perfect price. If you pre-ordered it, there was a little bit of an extra discount as well, so that was a fantastic price for Yakuza Zero. I think the game would have done well if it was priced at $39.99, but hey, they released it for $20, and I definitely got behind that. I had already played Yakuza Zero on the PlayStation 4, had a great time with it on there, and on the PC, it's even better. Next up, we have a game that I've been talking about for quite a while, and that is Kingdom Come Deliverance, developed by Warhorse Studio. It's a historical open-world RPG, very story-driven. It's an epic RPG adventure in the Holy Roman Empire, and this is a game that did have some technical shortcomings on launch. It has since gotten better and better, and it is a very challenging RPG that is very punishing depending on what type of settings you play this game on. It can be a very punishing experience. If you want a game that's more on the rewarding side, Kingdom Come Deliverance will definitely be up your alley then. It's a great revenge story. Visually, it looks great, and as I mentioned, technically speaking, it is getting better and better. And pricing-wise, I have seen Kingdom Come Deliverance on sale for as low as like $36, and at that price, I would say it's a very good pickup. Next up, I have to give a shout to Final Fantasy 15, the Windows Edition. I was one of the few people, it seemed like, that really enjoyed Final Fantasy 15 on consoles. Yes, I did agree with the fact that it did seem like an incomplete experience. Well, the Windows Edition is more of a complete experience, not the absolute complete experience, because there's another season pass on the way, but the content you get in the Windows Edition really should have been the game that we got from the get-go. So what do you have with the Windows Edition? Well, of course you get the base Final Fantasy 15 game, you get all of the season pass content that includes Episode Prompto, Episode Gladius, and Episode Ignis, 3 pieces of DLC that are really crucial to the character development of those characters. That season pass content should have really been in the main game, but hey, no crying over spilled milk. You've also got the Royal Edition upgrade, which adds some additional content, and you have the Comrades multiplayer mode in there as well, and Comrades is a pretty good diversion. This is more of a complete experience, and the PC version runs really well. It looks great. If you can push it at 4K, this is a beautiful looking game, and whether you're playing it at 4K, whether you're playing it at 60 frames per second, whether you're taking advantage of mods, the PC version is without a doubt the definitive version of Final Fantasy 15. Next up, I want to give a shout to Dragonball Fighterz. Now, fighting games and PC gaming don't really go hand to hand. The drawback on PC when it comes to fighting games is the fact that the player base dies out very quickly, and you'll see with Dragonball Fighterz, there aren't a ton of people online. There are usually around 2,000 to 3,000 people online at any given moment. That's enough to find a game and go online. Just bear in mind, if you pick up the game now, you are playing against some really good players, and you're probably going to get destroyed if you come in as a newbie. However, the game itself is still very good. As a Dragon Ball fan, obviously, it pleases me more than, say, a non-Dragon Ball fan, but this is also a very technical fighter. It's not like your typical Dragon Ball game where it's more simplistic. There are a lot of nuances to the game. It was developed by the guys that also did Blaze Blue, so you see where that's coming from. But if you're a Dragon Ball fan or you're a fan of fighters, or better yet, both, Dragon Ball Fighterz is definitely a game to check out. Next up, I definitely want to give a mention to EA's A Way Out. This was one of the most surprising game releases of the year. I thought it was going to be good, but I did think it was going to be a commercial disaster, considering the fact that this is a game that you have to play with co-op. However, if you do buy the game, you can invite a friend to play with you absolutely free, so that is a great inclusion with The Way Out. And the game turned out to do very well commercially, and not only that, the game was very, very good. A great story-driven adventure with an awesome twist at the end, a very emotional story, and as far as cooperative games go, we don't see a lot of games that are designed specifically for co-op. A Way Out is one that is, and it absolutely nails that game design. And lastly, I mentioned one JRPG with Final Fantasy 15 Windows Edition, gotta mention another, Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, wanna give a shout to that. I was a big fan of the very first Ni no Kuni game, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch on the PlayStation 3. Ni no Kuni 2, I'll be honest, isn't quite as good as Ni no Kuni 1, but it's a very good game in its own right. And what's great about Ni no Kuni is, even for those of you that aren't big fans of JRPGs, if you've never played a JRPG in your life, I really feel like Ni no Kuni 2 is a game that you can kick off your JRPG library with, because it's a game that's very relatable. It's a game that has a great art style. The story is pretty simple in that it's a former king that is trying to reclaim his throne. It's nothing crazy. It doesn't have all of those typical JRPG tropes that, say, a game that I'm a big fan of, A Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. That game has all those JRPG tropes, and I would not recommend that to a JRPG newcomer, even though I would say those games are better than Ni no Kuni. Ni no Kuni 2 is just such a great entry point, and the game itself is very good. The gameplay is good. Some of the side content put me off a little bit, but honestly, a small drawback to how overall great Ni no Kuni 2 is, and a great PC version as well. Runs really well, and you don't even need that beefy hardware either. Definitely would give that a look. Again, whether you've been a long-time fan of JRPGs or it's your first one, a great one to go with either way. So that's going to conclude this video. Those are my top 10 favorite PC games of 2018 so far. What do you think? Again, I'm missing a couple games. Pillars of Eternity 2, I still got to get around to really getting into that game. Considering how much I loved Pillars of Eternity 1, I'm sure that'll be one of my favorite games of the year. I'll get to that soon. And of course, as we're heading into the holiday season, and there are a ton of games to be released, like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we've got Fallout 76, Battlefield 5, and a ton of other games. I'm sure this list is going to change shape as we get to the end of the year. That's going to conclude this video. If you guys have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comments section down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. This video is sponsored by scdkeys.com. They've got great deals on all kinds of games as well as PC software. Specifically, they've got Windows 10 Pro OEM for just $14, so if you go on their site, type in Windows 10, you'll find it available right now. You can buy it, and you can take advantage of the promo code CM1 to save an additional 10%, so you'll be getting it a little bit cheaper. You can decide on your method of payment, check out, and bam, there you go. Now you've got Windows 10 a little bit cheaper. You can also use the code CM2 on games to save 3%, so take advantage of that as well.